All right, good morning, everybody. It's fantastic to be here in person. It was 3 years ago, I think, when we last got to get together, and I think it's really important for all the reasons that Sean mentioned. Being able to experience the technology firsthand. You're going to see a lot of that in the demo area, and then also just to be able to connect with everyone. I also want to mention for those in the back, I counted about 25 seats up front here. So if you're in the back and you'd like to sit down, there's plenty up here. It won't bother me if you want to filter up to the front. So I also want to welcome you to San Diego. San Diego is my hometown. I've lived here most of my life. So I'm really excited to be able to have the show here. And if you have some time in the evenings, please do try and visit a little bit of the city. There's great Mexican food in Old Town. So you might want to get over there. It's just a short Uber drive away. But it's also the home of Qualcomm, so my company. And we were founded here in San Diego in 1985. And we had no business plan and no products back then. Today, we're 45,000 employees. We're a technology innovator. We spent about $54 billion in cumulative R&D. To date, we have 145,000 patents. So we're really, innovation is at the core of our DNA. It's in everything we do. So I'm excited to share a little bit with you today about Snapdragon, one of our products, and how we're working with Snapdragon in a variety of different areas, including XR. So Snapdragon is Qualcomm's brand for its flagship set of premium solutions. These are, when you think of Qualcomm, you probably think of chipsets. So typically we've been known for that. We build chips that are in mobile phones. So we're in billions of phones today. So if you've got an Android phone, you've probably got Qualcomm. If you've got other phones, you probably have either our connectivity or our processor in there as well. But we're also in a bunch of other businesses. So we're in automotive, telematics, digital cockpit. We're doing autonomous driving solutions. We're in tablets as well, wearables, so watches, smartwatches, hearables, so audio devices, robotics, industrial machinery. So anything that has a processor or has connectivity, Qualcomm probably is playing a role in helping to transform that industry. And what I'm here to talk with you a little bit about today is XR, because this is an area that we are spending a tremendous amount of time focusing on. I think it's highly relevant to everything you're thinking about being here at the show today. So this year is, or it's been about 15 years since Qualcomm started its investment in XR technologies. So we started these back in 2007 with investments in smartphone augmented reality. So you can imagine, Qualcomm as a company was thinking about how do you get more value out of a smartphone, or at the time, a feature phone. And those phones started to have cameras on them. Then how could the camera be used to do amazing new things? So we began investing in augmented reality technology back then. And we actually helped get augmented reality moving in the smartphone market. The kinds of things you can do with AR Core and AR Kit today. The DNA for a lot of that started back in those early days. But we also knew from the work that we did in smartphone augmented reality that looking through a little rectilinear screen, a 5-inch screen at an augmented world, was really not the future. It needed to be on our heads, on our faces. So we started work in the early days, 2012, 2013, in how do we take our processors for mobile and how do we bring those to augmented reality devices. And we did early work with one of the early pioneers, ODG, in that space. And that work has continued, all the way to present day with devices like the Lenovo A3 or like the HoloLens 2. Those are all powered by Qualcomm technology. But we also realized back then that it was going to take a little bit longer than we anticipated for head-worn AR to happen. So this was, again, almost a decade ago. And so we started thinking about, well, how else could this technology be used in immersive mediums? And that got us thinking about virtual reality. So what could we do to take virtual reality that at the time was tethered to the PC and cut that cable and now unlock the power of virtual reality in a mobile device? So we built a reference design back in 2014, 2015, and we began working with the ecosystem around how we could take this standalone technology and bring it all in one, to people's heads. And ultimately, that turned into devices from Pico, devices from HTC, Lenovo, and then of course Meta. And so we really helped unlock the standalone or the wireless untethered virtual reality revolution that we've seen to date. And that also has really changed in the last 3 years since we were last here together. If you think about 2019, we had just seen the launch of Quest 1, and that was one of the first 6DoF controller, 6DoF headsets that it really started to get higher commercial success and volumes and that sort of thing. And so in the past 3 years, things have been accelerated extremely rapidly. And we're continuing to innovate. We're continuing to push the boundaries and accelerate the pace of innovation in this space. And I'm going to talk with you a little bit more about what we're doing there. So Qualcomm plays kind of 3 roles in the XR industry. We're a technology innovator, so we build the chipsets and also the core algorithms and technologies that make the devices work. If you think about these devices like AR or VR headsets, they need to be able to perceive the real world. They need to have an understanding of the environment. They have to have an understanding of the user's context in it. These are all done with tracking technologies. So positional tracking technologies, hand tracking technologies. Spatial understanding of the environment requires the devices to be able to scan that environment, interpret it, and reconstruct the 3D geometry of that environment. This is done using computer vision, and increasingly it's being done with machine learning. So if you take the investments that Qualcomm makes in the processor cores for mobile, and we apply that to XR, which we've done with our XR1 and XR2 series chips, now we're able to take all that scale that we have from the mobile industry and help accelerate the XR industry and build the algorithms that sit in software that make it possible. We also build what we call reference designs. I mentioned we had done one for virtual reality back in 2015. These are really blueprints that can be used by device manufacturers to accelerate their time to market. So if you think about building a VR device, you have to pick a lot of things. You have to pick displays, you have to pick optics, you have to pick sensors, camera sensors, and there's a whole slew of technology you need to bring this together in the right form factor, at the right thermal profile so that the device doesn't overheat. And this is tricky. And you also have to optimize the algorithms and the software for that virtual reality device. So the head tracking or positional tracking technology has to be run at the lowest possible power. So this is an area that Qualcomm spends a lot of time on so that you get longer battery life from these devices. And then increasingly what we're doing is taking these algorithms and technologies and moving them into the silicon so that they run at not just an order of magnitude, but maybe 100x lower power. And then the last thing we do is we're an ecosystem enabler. So we help not just build the hardware ecosystems, but we're also doing a lot with software ecosystems. And I'm going to talk about what we're doing today with Snapdragon Spaces. So when it comes to the market itself and how we look at it, we segment it kind of into 4 areas. There's enterprise and consumer virtual reality, and there's enterprise and consumer augmented reality. Of course, this is an enterprise show. So I'm going to spend most of my time talking about enterprise today. But just to touch briefly on consumer, as mentioned, the last 3 years have been fantastic in the consumer VR space. We've really seen much broader awareness, much broader adoption of VR technology in the hands of consumers. This has had a halo effect on the enterprise market because now there's just greater awareness about what these technologies mean. There's more startups and companies entering the market who are building technology, getting ideas for how it could be applied for commercial use cases. So 3 years, we've seen really this, I think, blooming of ecosystem around consumer that's had a great impact on enterprise. On the consumer AR side, we're still in the early days. I mentioned we started working on our idea back in 2013 when we started thinking about how do we take smartphone AR and bring it to glasses, was that we'd be able to get there a little bit faster. It's taken some time, and we're still not totally there yet, but I think the pace that we're innovating at now is accelerating tremendously, and you're going to be seeing things from Qualcomm over the next few months that are going to be major unlocks for helping get us to a reality where we can be wearing these consumer glasses for extended periods of time. So we're still not there yet on the consumer AR side, but we're getting there. So that's consumer. On the enterprise side, enterprise AR has been around for some time. You think of the spectrum, there's assisted reality like RealWear or Vuzix, Epson, Google Glass. Then you have the more immersive side of the spectrum, like the Lenovo A3, or let's say HoloLens or a Magic Leap. And we're very focused on immersive, although we power the assisted reality side as well. All those I mentioned are customers for us. That market is, or that part of the market is starting to accelerate, again, from innovations that we're helping build on to create like lighter weight glasses, lower power glasses, better form factors. And then I'm going to talk a little bit more about this in a few slides, but how does the glass and the smartphone work in tandem with each other to create better experiences? We think there's a relationship between the smartphone and the glass that's going to really help accelerate not just the consumer market, but also the enterprise market for augmented reality. And then, of course, enterprise VR is as I mentioned, is really starting. We're seeing it began to take off, and really excited about the possibilities in a bunch of use cases. I know you all know these use cases, and there's many sessions at the conference that's going to talk about how to use these for training or for other things. But this is sort of how we think about it, and this is the lens we use to look at the market. Now, there's been a lot of interesting things happening over the last few weeks. So last month, ByteDance announced the Pico Neo 4. This is it's a lightweight 4K display. I think it's got 1,200 pixels per inch displays on it. It's designed to make kind of VR more accessible for beginners and experienced gamers. So it's more of a consumer device, but they're focused very much on performance and content. And then Meta, of course, announced the Meta Quest Pro. This is the fourth device that Meta and Qualcomm have collaborated on over the last few years. We started working with them back even in 2015 when we were when I mentioned we got started in VR. And the Quest Pro obviously has foveated rendering with eye tracking, so now you can render at higher resolution the areas that the person is looking at. Both devices used pancake optics, so VR devices prior used a Fresnel lens. Looks a little bit like an onion if you look inside there. These newer devices are using a higher quality, more potentially longer term, lighter weight, better lens. You don't have the sweet spot issues that you have as much with the Fresnel lenses. But the pancake optics is a really big accelerator because it helps make the device less boxy. So you'll notice with the newer generation of devices, the box isn't sticking as far away from your face. The eye relief, the distance between the display and the optic and the eye can be much, much shorter. So, and then both devices have something called pass-through, which is we call that mixed reality. And this is the ability to do augmented reality inside a virtual reality device, which we think I'll talk more about this, but it's a really exciting way to start unlocking augmented reality use cases in a head-worn device in the short term. I also want to mention a new device from Lenovo. So our friends at Lenovo. So this device was announced a couple of weeks ago at an event that I was at with them in Portugal. And this device is really engineered for enterprise. It's a VR solution built for workers everywhere. It's super comfortable, slim, 6-degree freedom device, pass-through device. As I mentioned before, it's using the new optics technologies. So it supports a full suite of end-to-end services tailored for the enterprise. And so really encourage you to kind of go talk to Lenovo and take a look at this one. This is also the world's first device to support VR device, rather, to support Snapdragon Spaces. So I'll talk a little bit more about what Spaces is in a few moments. And all of these devices are powered by a brand new chip that we also just announced last week called the Extra 2 Plus Gen 1. And this is a new premium tier chip for XR devices. It's the same architecture as the XR2, which powers most of the commercial VR headsets out there and some of the AR ones. And it has improved thermal performance. It has you can increase the sustained power. What we do in this chip is, we used to put the memory on top of the chip, and that's because the DNA of the chip comes from mobile, and you want to have a smaller package because you've got a lighter weight, smaller form factor in a mobile phone. In this case, we said, let's take those apart and let's remove them and separate them. So now you can run at a higher sustained power, which can increase your performance on the device, and then also improves the thermals of the device. And then we've added a bunch of software into this chip to do things like mixed reality, video pass-through, and other perception technologies like spatial understanding of the environment and that sort of thing. So all three of those devices I just mentioned running a brand new chip from Qualcomm. On the AR side, we are doing a whole bunch of work in what we call a viewer. So this is an augmented reality glass that is tethered to the smartphone. And we announced this and started launching devices back in 2019 with this architecture. And first, the viewers were simple. They had no processing in them. They used USB to connect to the phone. And then in 2021, we introduced a smart viewer where we put a processor in the glasses, and that processor does many of the perception workloads, like understanding the environment and tracking the user's where the user is in the environment. We run that in the glass, and then we just send the position and orientation of the glass and the user over to the smartphone. So it's using less bandwidth on the glasses, between the glasses and the phone. So that enabled us to cut the cord. So of course, if you have glasses and you have a cord, that's not perfect for every use case. It works for many, many use cases. But we believe that the future is glasses wireless to the smartphone. And so we're using Wi-Fi 6E, which is a new version of Wi-Fi, runs in 60 gigahertz spectrum. We can do things low latency where the applications and the processing actually run on the smartphone itself, but the displays are here. And so you can do hand tracking, you can use the phone as a controller. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you'll be able to go over to Qualcomm's booth and see a bunch of ISVs that are showing solutions around it. I'll talk more about those in a second. So this wireless, we build wireless reference designs for augmented reality, and we have future announcements coming in this area, I think, that are going to be really exciting going into next year. Now, Snapdragon Spaces. So what is Snapdragon Spaces? Well, what we're doing here is we're taking the technology that was previously provided just to the OEM, and now we're bringing it to ISVs and developers so that they can build applications and content experiences for these devices directly on top of those algorithms. And so it's an open platform. It allows you to build in real-time 3D and then take those tracking technologies and use them to create immersive experiences. I'm going to show a quick video of this to give you a little sense for what those perception technologies look like. All right, so that's Snapdragon Spaces. So it's about building experiences for head-worn AR. And we're really excited to bring this product out to the developer community. We launched it officially in June, so we became generally available in June. Prior to that, we were doing early access. We got a bunch of partners we're working with that I'll talk with you a little bit more about it. But I mentioned that it was an open platform. So the foundation for Spaces is openness. We strongly believe that the future of the metaverse is open, and OpenXR, which is a technology from Kronos Group, it's royalty-free, it's open, it's a standard for interoperability on hardware, is the right way to be building this, future-proofing this technology. So Snapdragon Spaces as a platform is built entirely on OpenXR. And we did it from the ground up. So we built it very intentionally. I think we're one of the first platforms that has built from the ground up with OpenXR in mind. And this solves fragmentation problems. It enables better application portability. It enables you, if you're a developer in an enterprise, or you're working with a partner who's building applications and experiences for your VR or AR headsets, to have to not be locked in to even one platform. You can build for Spaces. You can move that application over to AR Core or AR Kit. So we're a big believer in it. Also, we're using engines. So if you think about Spaces, it's got SDKs, one for Unity, one for Unreal Engine. So we're building in real-time 3D here. So, so you can go get these SDKs from us. You can begin experimenting with the technology or work, again, with an ISV who can deliver the technology to you. But real-time 3D is extremely important because we're obviously taking this perception and environmental understanding, user understanding, awareness from the real world, and then we're using all that perception to render the content in the real world, whether it's a VR device running in mixed reality mode or it's an augmented reality device. So all this has to happen in real time. All right. So I'm not going to go through all the features of Spaces. You saw some of them there. I am going to talk a little bit about one feature, hand tracking. This is a technology that's really important, we think, for the future of interaction in this medium. So a couple of interactions we're showing here. So we take the core hand poses that the sensors capture, and then we interpret those, and then we feed those up through the SDK so that developers can, or ISVs can interact with them, and using the SDK itself. And so you can see a couple examples here. One is distal interactions. This is a raycast that's used for if, let's say, you're in augmented reality and you want to interact with a piece of content that's 5 or 6 feet away, you want to be able to use your finger to interact distally with that remote object. But you also may want to do physical interactions. So that's more walking up to the object and be able to manipulate it, that sort of thing. We also have a feature in the SDK called virtual force feedback. And so this is about how you follow the laws of physics when you're dealing with an object that's virtual perceptively. So if I'm, in this case here, you can see the person's trying to grab what should be a bar, but that bar is virtual. So what we do is when they go to position their hand on it, if they're in augmented reality, their hand will go through the virtual object, but the actual SDK renders a virtual ghost of the hand that stops. And this creates a nuanced user experience that gets the person to sort of perceive, okay, what I did wasn't supposed to happen. So I need to interact with this virtual object a little bit differently. So again, a bunch of features in the SDK and the platform and the tools, and would welcome you to take a look at those or work with a partner who is supporting them. So when we launched Spaces back in June, we launched it with a dev kit, which is the Lenovo A3. This is an augmented reality glass. It's a smart viewer. It tethers to the smartphone. So this is a piece of hardware that is available running Spaces today. Many of the demos that you'll see in the room over there, the demo room, are running on this device. But Vishal Shah, my friend, from Lenovo, is going to be presenting tomorrow and talking a little bit more about this new device, the VRX. But as I mentioned earlier, this is the first virtual reality headset that will support Spaces. So we're really excited to be working with Lenovo to enable this like early next year when the device is commercial. So I also want to state that I mentioned mixed reality is the ability to run augmented reality on a virtual reality device where you can turn on front-facing cameras and you can pass through the real world. One of the things that we're doing with Spaces that's really unique is we're allowing you to take your applications that you develop in virtual reality or mixed reality and bring them over to these optical see-through glasses. So now if you're an ISV or if you're a IT or OT shop that's investing in an augmented reality experience, you could maybe start working on AR and bring that to mixed reality on a VR device or vice versa. So we think this is actually a unique thing, hasn't been done in the industry, and are really excited to be enabling that kind of capability in Spaces. So I want to briefly talk about Qualcomm is doing a bunch of things to enable the ecosystem, one of which is we launched a $100 million metaverse fund. So we realized that unless we can get the content ecosystem, the ISVs, working and healthy, this market's not going to move at the pace we want it to move. So we're putting our ventures investment and dollars behind that. We've done a number of VC investments. We're doing content funding and other things. In terms of who we built Spaces for, so you all in the room, if you're an ISV, definitely for you. If you're a developer in-house, definitely for you to be able to experiment on these devices, to be able to build applications and solutions for your end customers. If you're not a developer, then we have ISV partners that we're working with to make it possible for you to still be able to access, this technology on a device. And so we give ISVs, or you as the enterprise developer, the tools you need to be able to create experiences in Unreal Engine or Unity, or you can choose, to work with an ISV. Since we launched in June, we've had a tremendous interest in spaces. We've got, thousands of developers now that we're engaged with. Here's a sample of some of them. Also want to highlight some of the enterprise ones that we're working with. You all may know, many of these have been working in the space for some time. And then lastly, I just want to highlight some of the ISVs that we have in our booth right now. You can go look at their solutions. So one is our Visio, and they're using what you can see is they're using digital twins or 3D models of networking and medical equipment to demonstrate how to do guided instructions using augmented reality with them to improve safety and productivity, or workforce training and upskilling, that kind of thing. We'll also have HoloLight in the booth. HoloLight is doing cloud streaming. So what if you want to run the applications in the cloud and you want to stream them to the AR glasses or the VR headset? So this allows you to have kind of one source of truth in the cloud for 3D assets, have a 3D data pipeline that's managed in the cloud, and then they do smart orchestration of those resources down to the VR or AR device. We have HoloOne also in the booth, and they're doing augmented reality collaboration and productivity for the enterprise. So remote assistance, guided work instruction, or workflow guidance, digital collaboration. And then lastly, Victory XR. This is one, we've been working with Victory for a long time. They're a fantastic company. We've done a lot with them in education and learning, but this is a fun learning application for augmented reality glasses where students can peek inside a superhero to see what makes them tick. So this is an anatomy lesson thing, but most of the organs in the person are the same, except for one, which makes the learning program extra fun. So this will kind of give you a sense of how you could use augmented reality to teach anatomy. And then lastly, how do you get started with Snapdragon Spaces? Well, you can visit our dev portal, spaces.qualcomm.com. You can register, get access to our SDKs, or as I mentioned, work with a ISV. If you're doing development, you could also purchase a Lenovo A3 through this. If you're going to commercialize a solution on the Lenovo A3, you can work with our friends at Lenovo, or in the future, the VRX, to get those commercially launched. So just want to thank you for the time today. Encourage you to come see our booth, look at our partners, join our community at spaces.qualcomm.com. We have a Discord server. If you're a developer or you're working in the tech space, you're interested in this community, please become engaged with us. And thank you so much. Really appreciate your time today. We're committed to XR. We're going to make this market happen, and we're really excited to have you all come build with us.